Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Good day. Today's video will be entitled Master of the House. Master of the House. And of course, I'm referring to the controllers and the triple G, GGG, Geneva Global Governance, which decides all matters having to do with anthropology, which includes eugenics, which is a part of anthropology, and expressed in the form of the United Nations, which is a joke because there are no nations. There are just Hunger Games strategic Hamlet districts. There are banking districts, central banking districts throughout the world, and they all have at least one obelisk with them. I'm talking about human husbandry. I'm talking about human husbandry. That's right, treating humans like domesticated farm animals. All right? Human husbandry is a long-term, intentional process of fostering, curating, and guiding people's emotional and relational and financial well-being so that they can be harvested when the controller, that is Farmer Jones, decides to send them off to the processing center. And for those people not familiar with pig farming or hog farming, processing center refers to the slaughterhouse, and it is a mess. It's noisy, loud, and bloody. Anyway, the origin of the concept of husbandry comes from the Latin roots having to do with the master of the house or house dweller, which originally refers to the careful management of the resource of a household. In agriculture, the term husbandry refers to the cultivation, production of plants and animals. And in modern psychology and personal development, human husbandry is adapted to the idea of human context of managing people's lives with the same care and attention that one would manage a farm or prison, a jail, penitentiary, a stockade. So, in other words, what I'm saying is the relationship that everyone has in China, Ukraine, Russia, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Africa, Latin America, North America, the relationship is called allegiance. You have an allegiance. It's the prisoner dilemma game. It's the relationship between the warden of the prison, or in Europe they refer to as the governor of your detention facility, your communal detention, the relationship that you have as a slave on the plantation, as an inmate in the jail, to your central authority, your higher authority, being the warden, and expressed through your prison guards and or electronic locks on your doors, which open and seal you into a windowless concrete tomb. Anyway, that relationship is human husbandry. It's also global governance out of Geneva, Geneva Global Governance. And I could have called today's video the three M's, right? Murder, mayhem, and motivation. But you can't have everything. So I'm just going with the master of the house. That's today's theme. All right. Grab an adult beverage, sit back, and let me begin my soliloquy here, having to do with the business at hand of animal husbandry applied to humans, right? That's what I'm talking about. All right. Couple things here. We live in a metaverse. I've, in previous videos over the last 4 years, I've always referred to the metaverse as the matrix of mendacity, and that's what it is. See, that's what I called it before Facebook and Control Labs of Manhattan merged and became one company, renamed Meta, which means dead in Hebrew. Dead means no cognitive brain function, means no tenet of thinking, that we follow orders or people die. It's just that simple. That's Meta. Meta is maritime law, right? That's the warden is in charge and he decides what time you have breakfast. I'm telling you that that'll be around 3:45 a.m. and dinner's at 4:45 p.m. How do you like them apples? How do you like detention? How do you like incarceration? All right, so we are engaged out of Geneva, Switzerland, and the 26 cantons of Switzerland, which includes Zug, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Zurich, Basel, Bern, Lugano, but Geneva being the world headquarters for the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, the World Economic Forum, NATO, Supreme Command, located in the House of Peace in Geneva. We're talking about the International Telecommunications Union, which decides how much radiation poisoning of Avena syndrome every single lab rat gets in this grand experiment of pacification and control using the strategic Hamlet program of mapped corridors, electronic corridors, 24/7 surveillance, prisoner planet, best expressed today as ring cameras, LED streetlights, LED headlights on cars, smart meters, drones over your head, helicopters, jet airplanes, fusion centers run by your local sheriff, who is being paid through your defense budget, your centralized control, which emanates from Geneva, Switzerland. So we are engaged in cognitive warfare. The technical definition, of course, if you've been watching the videos I've been posting for the last 4 years, and especially the last 7 days, is cognitive neuroscience electronic warfare. That's the military term for what we're under. You're under a 24/7 molecular engineering, neuromodulation, CRISPR therapeutics, gene editing, genomic DNA attack. Did you hear what I said? I know it's a mouthful. But if you're a paid member of my channel, you'll know exactly what I meant. And if you don't believe me, hit the pause button, rewind, and listen to what I just said again a second time or a third time, or go through a bottle of vodka and then go through it. Maybe it'll resonate with you more, right? Resonate like magnetic resonance imaging will. The neuromodulation electronic warfare is a direct energy weapon system. And there are three principal weapon death rays. One is magnetic resonance pulsing. PAVE pause pulsing is what we call magnetic resonance. And it's CRISPR. And you know what CRISPR means, right? All the paid members of my channel know that CRISPR means clustered, regularly interspaced, short palindromic repeats. So again, hit the pause button and replay what I just said. If you're a little bit confused as to what neuromodulation is. It's molecular engineering under a different name, under a military acronym called CRISPR. It also goes by Caribou Biosciences. It also goes by Innovative Genomic Institute in Berkeley at 2151 Berkeley Way, one block off of Phoebe Hearst Avenue at University of California, Berkeley. Yeah, that's right. They practice Cas9, which is their gene editing, scissoring, splicing of human genomics, human genes, injuring people. They do that at the Innovative Genomic Institute. They do that at the Jennifer Doudna Laboratory, and they do it with her mini-me clone, Rachel Horowitz at Caribou Biosciences, located about 3 miles away from the UC Berkeley campus at the Aquatic Center there in Berkeley off Ashby Avenue. And Ashby Avenue, if you've been watching my channel and are a paid member, you know that's the Earl Warren Freeway. Earl Warren was the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court when Jack Kennedy had his head blown off, had his right eyeball shot out, leaving him with the left eye of Horus. Anyway, Earl Warren was the retarded judge from Alameda County, from where I was born and raised. Earl Warren was the disgraceful, pathetic black robe, satanic, cult worshiper, Masonic clone for the Warren Commission, right? Which concluded that Lee Harvey Oswald, acting alone, killed John Kennedy, which is a complete mendacity and, one of the greatest lies of the 20th century. Of course, now we're in the 21st century and we have climate change and the COVID coronavirus global pandemic. I think actually that's the largest, grandest deception in the history of humanity is COVID, pandemics, and climate change. No such thing as climate change. As a practical matter, it doesn't exist, except over a million years. Okay, but what we have is a military operation going on with COVID, which is to pimp out and promote graphene and aluminum and arsenic poison and lithium and titanium and put that materials used to build laptop computers and mobile telephones to take radio frequency particulates and cram it into every human being under the guise of a vaccine, which it is most definitely not a vaccine. What it is a bioweapon. It's to hack your body using your personal body area network and all of the radiation poisoning that's being emitted from your light energy, LED street lights, that's photonics, and the ring cameras, which is ultrasonic, sonic weapon system, ring cameras. So we have sound, we have light, and we have magnetic resonance. Okay? So you have electronic weapon systems, which are invisible and quiet, except to the extent that you have ringing in your ears. Remember, the systems of the so-called coronavirus or the COVID disease or virus are identical to Havana syndrome. Havana syndrome is radiation poisoning. Havana syndrome is direct energy weapon attack symptoms, which is ringing in your ears, chronic headaches, malaise, fatigue, it's nausea, spatial awareness loss, loss of memory, senile dementia like symptoms, primarily the inability to remember names of your grandchildren or dates and times in your life, keeping your appointments, being prompt. If you're a person who has a tardiness problem, you're probably severely damaged. People who are tardy to their meetings are either chipped or heavily neuromodulated. That's coming from juxtaposition, and I'm going to stand by those statements. If you have a problem with being late to your appointments that you agreed you would attend, you have been neuromodulated, or you're just an extremely unreliable person who maybe smokes too many cigarettes and drinks vodka and drops acid. It's one or the other. All right. So anyway, molecular engineering is really the technically correct term to discuss the idea of gene editing, gene splicing, CRISPR therapeutics. They gave a Nobel Prize to Jennifer Doudna, which she is completely undeserving of. But they gave a Pulitzer Prize to Seymour Hersh, and he's totally undeserving as a plagiarist of the My Lai massacre of the workings of Ronald Rettenhauer. But be that as it may, that's how we do things in the metaverse. In the matrix of mendacity, we bald-face lie 24/7, and we award fraudulent charlatans with international prizes. I believe Obama has won such prizes as well. They always give the clowns in the circus street credibility, like an Academy Award in Hollywood. It's no different, right? I mean, Academy Awards are promotional considerations. There's nothing really to do with any legitimate democratic voting process. It's rigged, right? You know, the Academy Awards is rigged. And you know that's true because wasn't Price Waterhouse their auditor? And didn't Price Waterhouse get the wrong results in one of the envelopes? That's their auditor. Their stupid auditor can't even get it right. Thank God I didn't work for them. Of course, I worked for a company that had plenty of scandals, Ernst and Ernst. We had scandals of our own, but just not to the same extent as Arthur Anderson, or Price Waterhouse, Price Waterhouse Coopers and Lybrand. All right. So anyway, what I wanted to tell you is that it's molecular engineering, but a better term that I like to use is human augmentation, which has to do with damaging, injuring, and permanently altering your DNA, your genomic blueprint, tampering with it. Now, the way this is being presented to the clueless sheep on this plantation is it's precision medicine, point of care medicine, personalized medicine, e-medicine. You'll hear all those terms bantied about: to cure cancer, to prevent cancer, to lick it at the bud. And this is a non-invasive, remote therapeutic cure for disease, for the pandemic, for viruses, right? For damaged DNA. That's a bald-faced lie. It damages your DNA to disable your tenets of thinking. The main purpose of CRISPR is not to cure cancer. They're not spending trillions of dollars putting up nanodust and drones over your head. They're not doing that to cure cancer. All right. They've never been interested in curing cancer. They've always been interested in promoting cancer with carcinogens, polluting the water and the soil, and dumping radioactive materials in 55-gallon drums off the Golden Gate Bridge at the Farallon Islands, off of Pebble Beach of Carmel, dumping 55-gallon drums with or without Johnny Roselli's body in it, but a boatload of radio frequency material in the Pacific Ocean and in Treasure Island, where they put a skateboard park over the drums of radioactive materials, which will be toxic to humans for at least 500 years in the future. All right, so we have this situation of Innovative Genomic Institute at Cal Berkeley, which is in the same exact building as the Jennifer Doudna lab. Jennifer has been now appointed, granted, awarded, promoted to the Chancellor of Biomedicine at Cal Berkeley. That's code for public enemy number one. Public enemy number one. I mean, who do you think's more dangerous? Al Capone, right? And I do recommend you look at the Jennifer Small video that I did with her on the expose of the Roaring Twenties in Chicago, Illinois, and Al Capone being the head of the Chicago outfit in the 1920s during Prohibition and jazz music coming into Chicago in the speakeasies. Who do you think's more dangerous? Al Capone, who was deemed public enemy number one, or Jennifer Doudna, or her second husband, Jamie Cates, who is the director of the Innovative Genomic Institute? Or maybe you think it's Rachel Horowitz, age 40, who is the CEO of a company that uses Cas9 CRISPR Therapeutics gene splicing, and her company is Caribou Biosciences. I would say that those three are 10 million times more dangerous than Al Capone. All right. But that's me. Call me a skeptic. All right. So you realize that this precision medicine, point of care, e-medicine, also e-pharmacy, the delivery of simulated synthetic drugs through the walls of your home directly into your body using direct energy weapon systems of light, photonics, sound, ultrasonic, and or magnetic resonance, one of three or all three, to deliver a simulated Prozac, a simulated mind control formula, a electroshock treatment like your Timothy Leary, and you want to zap Ted Kaczynski. You know that Timothy Leary provided not only LSD and psilocybins to an 18-year-old Ted Kaczynski at Harvard University, he also gave him electroshock treatments to his brain, right? Well, guess what? You're getting the Timothy Leary treatment today because because you have LED streetlights across the street and your neighbor has a Ring camera and you have a smart meter on the wall of your house or in the sidewalk area in front of your house. And what I'm telling you is that you're being treated like Ted Kaczynski was for 3 out of 4 years at Harvard University, whereupon Ted Kaczynski graduated with a bachelor's degree in mathematics and went on to be a teacher, lecturer at Cal Berkeley, adjunct professor at University of California, Berkeley. Ted Kaczynski. This is before he was a Unabomber. He was a professor at Berkeley in 1968 and 1969. Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. All right. So if you wonder where all the criminals are, it's easy. They're at Harvard, at Berkeley, at MIT. They use names like Gnome or Sammy Bankman French fried, or they use words like Steve Bannon or Jeffrey Skilling. Okay, if they have degrees from Harvard, Stanford, Berkeley, Yale, Princeton, MIT, you know that they're engaged in felonious criminal acts against humanity. All right, I'm just trying to save you time. I've done the research. All right, so at no time did you sign a document to authorize consent, did you, for non-invasive treatments of CRISPR-Cas9 neuromodulation, molecular engineering? Did anybody tell Jennifer Doudna it was okay to pulse them like Ted Kaczynski? Did you sign a document? Or did you go to a balloting area and vote for neuromodulation? Did you vote to install smart meters in your neighborhood? Did you vote to install Ring cameras or to allow Ring cameras to be installed without a permit, without having any city or county licensing? Just go ahead, do it. Did you agree to that? Did you agree to have NATO planes dumping aluminum chalk on you every 10 minutes, 16 hours a day? Did you agree to that? Did you vote for that? No, it's just being foisted upon you out of the three G's. Geneva Global Governance. They're just doing it. That's called climate action, right? Climate action that we need to save the planet. But over 50% of all the fossil fuel that's drilled out of the earth is used by the military, used by NATO. So if you were concerned about polluted air and climate change as a result of excess carbon footprint, just stop funding the military. Just tell NATO to get lost, to lose the blue helmets. And voila, just like that, overnight, climate change is stopped in its tracks, stopped dead in its track. See, I know how to solve climate change. And I guess what? I know how to solve global pandemics too. Take your cell phone and take a sledgehammer and pound the crap out of it and then bury it 6 feet underground. Pandemics gone. Because the only way you can have a global pandemic is if you can deliver the psychological message on a mobile device worldwide simultaneously. This is how you could have people in Milan and Rome, Italy, and Paris, France, and London, England, masking up like a bunch of retarded people as we have a breakout from a bat shit crazy story in the Wuhan lab in China, which is 12 hours away. So, in other words, we have a food toxicity problem in a food market in Wuhan as a result of a biomedical lab, which is controlled by Geneva, Switzerland, and that this then causes the people of Paris and Rome and the Vatican City and the Pope and all of the cardinals and all the archbishops and all the clowns in London and Manhattan, New York, and San Francisco and Chicago and Los Angeles to all wear satanic face diapers and social distance 6 feet, which is 33, the highest degree of obedience and compliance within the military chain of command, the obelisk, the power of the pyramid. See, so if you can terminate the telecommunications business by destroying the ITU and the IEEE and disassembling all the ring cameras and all the smart meters and all the LED streetlights, there can be no pandemic. Okay? Can only exist in your brain. And if you stop tormenting people and inserting balderdash, mendacity, and poppycock into their brain, then you have solved a global health crisis because it's a global mental health crisis. And it's also a neuromodulations problem. The idea of modulating people using CRISPR, clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats, which is Ted Kaczynski electronic mind control, that's unhealthy. All right. And that can cause brain tumors, and that can cause manic episodes or rodent dropping toxicity. Yes. Or what the coroner would call that. This is a concept of in vivo, again, the Latin root with within the living. This is the concept that our medical establishment, under the standard of care, they've invented this nonsensical word, non-invasive. They just mean that they don't use a surgical knife or a syringe needle, that they don't need a needle, and they don't use a knife to treat therapeutically some illness or disease or virus or cancerous growth. So, for example, they are now saying that using a direct energy weapon of light, sound, or magnetic resonance is non-invasive. That's bald-faced lie. That's completely invasive. Okay? And by the way, they've just steamrolled your consent. You have no body autonomy. They have hooked you up to the internet against your permission. You have not offered your permission. You have not granted your permission. There's no informed consent. Our medical system doesn't believe in informed consent. At no time has there ever been informed consent in our medical system. Everything is a military directive under maritime law. It's follow orders or else I'll report you if you don't do what I say. That's mandates. Those are directives. Those are commands. That's like the Godfather asking you for a favor. That's command. He's not asking for a favor. He's telling you what you're going to do. Or else. Or else. He's just being polite about it. In vivo is the idea that we don't use a knife or a needle. On the other hand, we do electroshock treatment. If I strapped you into an electric chair and pulsed you with 100,000 watts of electricity for 30 minutes, do you consider that invasive or non-invasive? Okay? Look at the treatments that we use for cancer. Radiation, where we destroy healthy tissue as well as the bad tissue. Radiation therapy, chemotherapy, antibiotics was like throwing a hand grenade into your body to destroy everything in your immune system and then letting your body rebuild itself, build back better. But the antibiotics is the demolition phase of build back better. Before you have build back better, BBB, before we have that, you have to have demolition, demo. So the way we've treated cancer is by demolishing chemotherapy, radiation therapy, to demo the good, the bad, and the ugly. The good, the bad, and the ugly, and the pretty, all demolished. And then your body heals itself because the chemo doesn't heal you. Chemotherapy's never healed anyone in the history of the world. Bodies heal themselves. Bodies heal themselves. Okay, so this business of in vivo, non-invasive is a lie. It's a bald-faced lie. Okay, just because they don't use a knife or a needle, although they do use a needle with the jab, right? The COVID-19 vaccine is invasive. It uses a jab and it puts aluminum, graphene, arsenic poison, and lithium into your body, which is toxic. Just because they don't use a needle or a knife, it's still very invasive to give people electroshock treatments under CRISPR, clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats, aka neuromodulation, aka molecular engineering, aka innovative genomic cutting and splicing of your DNA, which they also use the PCR gene collection procedure to amplify that means make copies of your DNA profile. That's what the PCR test is all about. It's not about the flu. It's not really about detecting cancer. It's about collecting your DNA and putting it into your dossier so that we can integrate your medical records, your DMV vehicle registrations, your driving record, your professional licensing, and your bank account to create a tokenized world where we take your money, your social credit is your money, and we integrate that with your behavior and you're restricted to barracks, restricted to base, restricted to your room, restricted to solitary confinement, that we will devise a military stockade system, which is the relationship between the prisoner and the warden, which is your allegiance, that we're going to construct a prison, a military stockade prison system under maritime law where you do what I say, we follow orders or else. It's just that simple. That's what they're doing. They're taking your money, your health, your tenets of thinking. They're suspending your ability to decide things for yourself. They are neutralizing and pacifying and controlling you in the way that a prisoner is treated in the stockade. Now, if you haven't been booked into the jail and haven't had a saliva swab taken or been fingerprinted, if you haven't had that and then put into solitary confinement, you might not understand what the hell I'm talking about. But essentially, you are in a jail. You've been booked into your strategic Hamlet. And you know that I just did a video regarding the My Lai massacre, which Ronald Rettenheimer is the hero of that story. The second hero is Hugh Thompson, the helicopter pilot who put an end to the shooting. You got to remember that Charlie Company was just about done murdering everybody. So by the time that Hugh Thompson stopped them, they were already almost 4 hours into the murdering of hundreds of people, probably around 650 people. But officially, it's 504 innocent civilians, unarmed, killed. But Hugh Thompson was stopping something that was probably going to stop in the next 20 minutes anyway. But Hugh Thompson didn't write any letters to Richard Nixon or his senators or to the Congress or to any cabinet members. But Ronald Rettenheimer did. He wrote 30 letters. But you see, if it was left up to Hugh Thompson, we never would have known about the My Lai massacre. And you know there are many My Lai massacres, not just one. But they ended up arresting, arraigning, and convicting only one of 26 people. You could have arrested over 300 people that were involved with the My Lai massacre, including, guarding the perimeter and in helicopters and planes flying overhead by colonels who are directing the mayhem and murder and motivation of pacification under and control of Phoenix program in Vietnam following the Tet Offensive. In other words, it was not an accident. It was deliberate on purpose to kill innocent women and children. That was deliberate on purpose. I mean, the My Lai village hamlets are only 100 miles from Da Nang, which is the main port facility to load weapons. Weapons for both the Viet Cong and the Marines and the Army, I would imagine. I think they resupply everyone out of Da Nang, the enemy and the good guys and the bad guys. In other words, it's not a war. It's a human genomic experiment of pacification and control. All right. So, what I want you to know is that when William Kelly was convicted and the other 25 defendants were acquitted, William Kelly, after 79 hours of deliberation by 6 jurors, decided to give him life imprisonment and hard labor. That was the sentence for Second Lieutenant Kelly, life imprisonment and hard labor. I said life imprisonment, and that would have been served what they call the U.S. The United States disciplinary barracks, which also goes by the name of Fort Leavenworth. Fort Leavenworth. That's where he was going to go. But as soon as everybody left and the cameras were turned off, the sentence very quickly, that was given on March 29th, 1971. William Kelly was given life imprisonment with hard labor to be transferred to Fort Leavenworth. That's not what happened. They immediately reduced his sentence to 20 years and dropped the hard labor. And then they just transferred him to detention of the base. In other words, house arrest of the base, which is like 10,000 acres of land. So he doesn't have to stay in his room or his general's house. He's in a mansion, one of the nicest homes at Camp Fort Benning, Georgia. Then within a few months, the 20 years was dropped to 10 years. And then Richard Nixon got involved and it was reduced to 3 years. And then he was pardoned and sent home. In other words, he wasn't restricted to the base anymore. But you see, that's exactly like the COVID policies. In other words, the way that William Kelly was treated for the My Lai massacre, for being a scapegoat, for being convicted of killing 22 unarmed civilians. I already told you there's over 650 people probably killed there. And we all agree that William Kelly did not kill everyone. So who killed the majority of people? I don't know. Everyone was acquitted, including the commanding officers. They were acquitted too. The ones that were ordering William Kelly to kill. So the system protects itself under maritime law. The system protects itself. It's the snake. It's a satanic snake in black robes or uniforms. All right. So what I wanted to tell you is that the stockade, the jail, the prison, the penitentiary, they all function under maritime law. The captain's in charge of the ship, and we follow orders or people die. It's just that simple. Well, that's COVID. Shelter in place, essential businesses, the boarding up of family businesses throughout your hamlet, town, township, county, hamlet, strategic area, secured perimeter. Does that sound like COVID? Does it sound like you have travel restrictions? You can't go to Europe without biometrics? Maybe you can get on a plane if you can prove you have the COVID vaccine and a real ID. But then when you land, they're not going to let you through the turnstile unless you have all your biometric palm print and eyeball recognition on file because Europe is under a biometric mandate. All right. So that means anyone in the United States is too, and anyone who works for a military contractor and anyone who works for an international corporation, which is virtually all the corporations, are all under biometrics. We're going to biosecurity. Forget about cybersecurity. We're going into biosecurity. That is DNA based real ID verification. There's a bill in Congress that was just submitted in the last week that's called Let the Parents Decide. The Parents Decide Act. Has nothing to do with parents, has nothing to do with children, it has to do with real ID verification. Everyone has to be submitting to eyeball recognition, palm print, and fingerprints, and or mandatory jabs and flu shots and bird flu. Don't forget bird flu is probably going to be upon us soon. Bird flu, monkeypox, bird flu, and the next variant of the Omicron COVID-19 hoax. They're all hoaxes. They're all part of climate change. They're all part of real ID. There's no such thing as a global pandemic. What there is radiation poisoning known as Havana syndrome, which is known as real ID verification, so that you can be tagged exactly how cows, milk cows, dairy cows, meat cows, hamburger cows, pop sirloin, ribeye cows, chickens, poultry, turkey, sheep, pigs, hogs, hog farming, fish farming, they're all tagged too. It has to do with human husbandry, the breeding, carrying, feeding, and slaughtering, aka harvesting, of the animals on the farm. They're not there running a petting zoo. Okay. When you're raising cows and pigs and hogs and chickens, you're trying to make money, right? And use Monsanto, corn fed feedlots. So they're using growth hormones, they're using the pharmaceutical industry to fatten up the pigs and chickens and cows quick like a bunny rabbit so they can turn them into slaughterhouse product and then into cash for their checking accounts as quickly as possible. That's the concept of Vietnam. That's the concept of Rwanda. That's the concept of your neighborhood. That's the concept of your fusion center, where your sheriff is paid by the federal government to spy on you 24/7. That's what a fusion center does. Because, Farmer Jones, he traces and tracks and targets all of his farm animals all the time. And the master of the house controls the water, the air, the land, and all the critters running around the farm, which has a secured perimeter. You could call yourself a free range chicken, right? But I guarantee you that there's a barbed wire fence and netting so that the chickens cannot exit the property. They are not going to allow sheep and cows to just wander off the grid. I've seen that in Europe where the cows walk across the road whilst I was coming down a hill at 50 miles per hour. I would call that free range cows, but they were restricted to a general area because they have to go get their water and their feed. So they don't really make a jailbreak. That's what we have in America. Everyone is under the delusion because the media tells you about the 4th of July parade and liberty and freedom at every sporting event, every Roman circus, every entertainment venue, from WWE wrestling to fake phony steroid football to fake phony basketball to fake phony corkback baseball. They want to tell you about freedom and liberty. The whole time they're installing ring cameras and smart meters and LED light emitting diode streetlights, Bluetooth, Zigbee, smart dust, polluted skies, mandated jabs, bird flu, Omicron variants. They have imprisoned you. You have no liberty. You have no freedom. You're a clueless sheep on the reservation. All right. And you are subjected to very invasive Havana syndrome, radiation toxicity poisoning, which I've told you is cognitive warfare. It's cognitive neuroscience electronic warfare. And it's like cooking brisket. Doesn't everyone enjoy a good brisket sandwich? I know I do. To make brisket, which first you kill a cow, you got to kill a cow or a pig, and then you slaughter it, and then you take the slabs of the cow or the pig and you put it in a big oven at 225 to 300 degrees Fahrenheit for 8 to 12 hours of cooking. That's a slow cook. But in the military, they call that a slow kill. Slow kill, slow cook, slow kill. What's the diff? We could ask Jennifer Doudna. What do you think she knows? You think she knows what a slow cook is? She's practicing CAD9 CRISPR therapeutics, which I told you is clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats. Well, that's making briskets out of humans. Jennifer Doudna, her second husband, Jamie Kate, Rachel Horowitz, they're in the brisket barbecue business. That's what they do at Cal Berkeley. That's what they do at MIT. And that's what they do with the Department of Energy and the Department of Defense and DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. They cook people like brisket, and they'll give a Nobel Prize and bestow the title of Chancellor of Biomedicine for Jennifer Doudna, who's in the brisket barbecue business. Can you believe that? It's pretty outrageous. Well, anyway, that's my soliloquy for today. I hope you learned something and do become a paid member so that you can get up to speed with the glossary of terms and the lexicon of terms and become part of the milieu of the juxtaposition channel. And maybe someday you can get one of these juxtaposition one handsome coffee mugs. This has been Coffee Talk, Coffee Time with Juxtaposition. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you later. Do like and share my videos. I'm heavily shadow banned. Bye now.